ancient story of a student who went to the master and said, I pray, I study, I meditate, I do my daily rituals, and I even fast a little. I live in peace with others. Teacher, what more can I do? The master rose, lifted his hands, and stretched his fingers out towards the heavens, when suddenly they became like 10 lamps of fire, and then he said, You can become all flame. Welcome. I am Jareth Tempest, mystic, magician, psychonaut, astronaut, hierophant, all-around seeker of truth, author, full-time weirdo, and host of this show where we talk about mysticism, the mystical journey, and all that's magical in the universe. Everything from spirits to spirituality, while I take you on a magical mystery tour through the inner worlds and hopefully inspire you to take the next step so you can become all flame. Alright, well, welcome to this episode of the show. I am still in the middle of my move, so again, we're probably going to try to keep this a little shorter, and if you hear noise or chaos or dogs or anything, that's just my life right now. Everything's crazy. So I'm actually recording this pretty much right after I recorded the last episode, so everything is still nuts. I should actually, when this is airing, I should actually probably be driving. We're moving from Fort Worth, Texas to Reno, Nevada, so it's quite a drive. It's a big move. That's what's going on in my life. Yeah, okay. Let's see, take care of the business stuff. I have a website, blog really, I guess is really more accurate, where I have spirit interviews that I've made. People have been asking about where they can read these interviews, and it's in my blog, and I have a link in the description. And just go to the main page and just scroll down, and you can find everything that's there, including all of the interviews. And they all say stuff like interview with or experiment with, something like that, but they're pretty easy to figure out. And then I have a Patreon where I post the interviews there before I post them on the blog, and I also post these episodes there before I post them everywhere else. And so if you want to join that would be awesome. Oh yeah, Etsy. I have an Etsy store where I sell attunements. And attunement's sort of like Reiki, but only imagine if you could channel Raziel or Lucifer's energy instead of Reiki, and use that to manifest and to deepen your connection with that spirit. And the big thing we got going on right now are the Kabbalistic attunements with John T. Meyer. He is a Kabbalah expert and has access to all this information straight from the primary sources, so it's not like being filtered through the Golden Dawn or anything like that. It's coming straight from the source. He has generously offered his expertise in these so that we can make them available to you guys, and I do my energy work with it, and then I pass it on to you. And so we have the 22-letter name of God, and we have Eya and Adonai, and we've got something really exciting coming up pretty soon. So I'm going to be quiet right now, but something really big is coming, so be ready. Wherever you're hearing this, if you want to subscribe, I would appreciate it. If they have a like button or something like that, hit the like button. And okay, enough of all of that. Let's get on to business. So, one of the things I do that's really fun, and has really kind of expanded these interviews and gone in directions that I wasn't expecting, was I will ask questions or ask my patrons on Patreon to give me questions to ask these spirits. And I don't use all of them by any means. I don't have time, and a lot of the stuff is not really kind of in the direction we're headed. But sometimes there's some, I do pick some of the more interesting questions from the list, and I just see what we get, and it's taken us into into some interesting places. And one of those that someone wanted to ask about Raziel was the higher self. And honestly, we got some answers I was not expecting. This is one of those areas where we not only got an answer that we weren't expecting, but it ended up becoming a whole area of study that we were not expecting to be so important. Because I didn't really even think there was a higher self. I was of the opinion that your higher self was your holy guardian angel. And oops. It just it's things are a little bit more complicated than even I was expecting. So yeah, it was really interesting. And so basically, I guess to explain this the best way, I will talk a little bit about a theory that was in the early stages of Kabbalah. Kabbalah didn't just appear out of the blue. People, these very intelligent thinkers would think about this, and they would write off of each other, and like someone would say this and like, well, that's interesting, well, what if I about this, and they kind of built on each other, went back and forth and argued and debated and trash talked and all of that. And this of course happened over centuries. Well, one of the big issues, and I've mentioned this before, is that we have this belief that God is totally infinite and unlimited in any way, and yet we have a very finite world with limitations. And how can something finite and something infinite, how can those two things touch and meet? And one of the earliest ideas they had was something that they called the special cherub theory. And what that was that there was an intermediary entity that they called the special cherub. They didn't really have a name for it. I mean, they might have, but in general, it doesn't matter. It was not like they were trying to say that there was a particular entity that did this, just that this idea that there was this intermediate entity that touches the divine and the finite and connects the two together. What we found out by talking to Raziel is that is actually kind of what your higher self is. It's something that you are. It's your connection to the divine. But it's not just an abstract idea of your connection to the divine. It's kind of like the real part of you that connects to that ultimate divine power. And in a sense, then it becomes the God within you, that divinity that dwells within you. So this is sort of like the base of all of your power and your authority. Unfortunately, we've found out that not everyone is born with one of these. It's something that you develop over time. And if you've never taken the time to try to connect with the divine in any way, you may not have a higher self. And I guess we should kind of I don't want to fall down the rabbit hole of explaining everything that happens after death that we've learned, but the higher self, it does reincarnate. In that sense, reincarnation is real. And so the higher self, when you're first lifetime on this planet, you may or may not develop the higher self. And if you don't develop that higher self, then that part there's nothing there to reincarnate. And so it's that, oh God, there's all of this stuff, there's so many things and little aspects of this stuff to talk about. But I'm trying to stay focused on just the higher self right now. So people are born, and the way Raziel described it was that they were born with a seed, and it's our job to water that seed and to give it everything it needs to grow. And so you can almost think of it as like a tree that grows from from in you, and its roots are in you, but then it reaches up to the heavens and tries to connect with divinity. And the more that you work with that, the more that it reaches that, and then the more power you have. And so we have not found any rules of how fast that takes, and how much you can get done in a single lifetime. And so I don't see any reason to think that you can't have a very powerful higher self within one lifetime if you just really work at it. And so this is the sense of we hear about people talking about they have a relationship with God or a relationship with divinity in this sense. And this is what you need to do, and this is and this is one of the entities that you'll actually be having that relationship with. One of the interesting things that we found out about the ultimate divine, that makes up everything, is that it doesn't really have a voice. I'm not sure what Raziel meant by that, but one thing that was interesting was that there were certain people whose higher self gets to such a degree, the connection is so strong that the ultimate divine is then able to speak through them, and they give that ultimate divinity a voice. And this is where many of the great teachers and prophets and saints from around the world, this is where it comes from. It's that higher self within them that is that connection has grown to such a point that it's able to give that ultimate divine power a voice in the world through a human being. The coolest thing about that Raziel said is that this isn't just a once in a every few thousand years event. She said that there's usually about 10 of these types of people on Earth at any given time. So people, there are people here right now that have this connection. We're just not, for whatever reason, their voices aren't being amplified, or maybe they are and we just don't realize it. It's just something to think about, though, that these people are out there. And for the people interested in who is what, was who, and where and what, the example that was used was Jesus Christ. Raziel said that Jesus's higher self was connected to divinity so much that God was able to speak through him. She also then made it clear that that Jesus, while he may have been a voice of the divine, the religion that formed around him, he was just at the right place at the right time. The religion that formed around him was not necessarily the end all be all of truth. It was like everything humans do. It's flawed, and they got some stuff wrong, and this is and this is another. There's so much to talk about. But that everything needs to be updated, constantly updated. After a few hundred years, our life on Earth has changed. So it needs a little bit of updating. This is something that kind of goes against our nature. We really like old things and think that older is better in a lot of ways, but that's not really the case. And this is something we kind of do hear repeatedly from the spirits, is that everything needs to be updated. Our religions, our magic systems, our ways of thinking, they need to be evolving and changing. As things become more complex, our beliefs need to grow with that. And that's really kind of what I kind of think that is what's going on with the higher self is, we're born as we develop and grow, then so does this higher self within us, and it becomes a more complex entity that, and it's, I mean, it's us, but it's the true us, the bigger us. But yeah, complexity and things, we become more complex, and our religions and everything, it needs to all grow and change and evolve with us, and that's a good thing. It should not be something that we're afraid of. But yeah, as far as the so okay, so then the question is, all right, well, how do we develop this higher self? Oh my God, just chill. How do we develop this higher self, and how do we have it grow? And what Raziel said, it's kind of what you would almost expect. It's to help people to choose, love and light, uh, as opposed to being a selfish dick all the time. It's but helping people, but also like trying to just actively trying to get closer to God, and trying to develop yourself spiritually, and working in magic, and working with various spirits, and because all of this will help add to your wealth of knowledge and experience. And this is what does it. And especially the more interested you are in spiritual matters, the more that this will help you develop that. And you're not saying that you have to become a saint or anything. It's just a matter of just putting a little bit of effort in that direction in your life. And I don't think it's hard. I don't think that there's like a ton of people running around on this earth who don't have a higher self. I mean, there's some, obviously, but it's not something that I think you should worry about. I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are already well on your way. If you have an interest in these matters, you probably are on your way towards a pretty well developed higher self. A great many of us have been here. I've already reincarnated a few times, and we'll talk about past lives and all of that on another time. Because yeah, God, we've got so many fun, amazing things to talk about. But right now, we're still trying to just get these foundations out, and this idea of the higher self is really important. And again, we had no idea. This is something that I didn't even take into consideration, and so there's this idea is not new, and I do want to stress that if you look in Kabbalah, the idea that the soul has multiple parts is there. So you have, and my pronunciation is going to be screwed up on, and I want to say this. It's not just about from Kabbalah, but it's from everything. I mean well, but my tongue is still a Texan tongue, and it just doesn't necessarily work with other languages. Things sound one way in my head, but my tongue says it completely different. That's just, so I apologize to anyone who actually speaks Hebrew. But the lower part of the soul that's more like linked to your body, and you're just making your body function, is called the nefesh. And then the other part that we all have is called a ruach. Think of it as like your spirit, or it's like your psyche, I guess. It's all the your personality and the rest of you. And then you have the neshama, and this is your that higher self that you develop. Like when you start reading about it, they want to talk about the intellect, but it's hard to it's hard to separate the idea of the intellect from your your personality and your emotions and stuff. And we're not gonna I don't think it's helpful necessarily to try to define every little detail about these things. It's good. It's important to know about them and to know the kind of in general how they function. But the other thing that we keep getting from these interviews and the answers we're getting is that there's a great amount of diversity in how these things work person to person, to the point where it's really hard to get a spirit to say that it is this way or it is that way, because there's always these outliers that, so we've learned, like, well, are most people like this, or does in general is this how it works? So there's always these outliers. So I don't ever want you to think that because maybe this doesn't match your experience that what I'm saying is wrong. It's just that you could be one of these outliers, or where you're getting your information from could be. And there's just so much variation. And again, like as we said in that last episode, we create with our beliefs our own inner magical universe. And so those beliefs can help, and those that inner world that we make for ourselves can have a greater impact on these type, these different parts of who we are. So yeah, anyway, that's how that is brought up in Kabbalah. And the Egyptian in Egyptian mythology, there was a version of this as well. And in Egyptian, it's a little bit more complicated. There are a whole bunch of pieces of this. All there's more in Kabbalah too, but there's a whole lot in the Egyptian. And actually, depending on what you're reading and where they were from and at what time, the names change, and so it can be a lot harder. So I might say a name that you're like, oh, that's not what it is. I've read it was this, but basically, you have, and I can't remember exactly which fits to what with Egyptian. So I'm not going to necessarily try. But the idea is not. This is not. The point is that this is not a brand new idea. That the Egyptians knew about it. The Kabbalists know about it. It is a known thing, and it's just so interesting to me that we don't automatically have it. It's something that we have to develop. The idea that we develop these things over time, and that and it's our connection, and we do still have what is traditionally called a holy guardian angel, and we have, and that is given to us, and it grows with us as well over the course of our lifetimes. And we'll definitely be talking more about the holy guardian angel. An angel is a misleading word, but there's a lot, and again, we'll get into that. But yeah, it's all very fascinating. All these different pieces intermingling within us, and that are all intertwined within us, and they all go to different afterlives, and there's reincarnation, and ultimately, hopefully, there's what we call the divine marriage, where your holy guardian angel and your higher self merge together and just truly become this new person, and you become this new higher being, and that is the ultimate goal, Raziel says, of the higher self, is to unite with your holy guardian angel, and in that divine marriage. And you see this, and I can't remember where I was reading it, but it was in some Golden Dawn material, but it's also in alchemy. And you hear that language in Christianity, even the divine marriage is of course it's supposed to be between you and Christ, but what these, the holy guardian angel and your higher self, what are these if not the divine within you, and you're merging yourself with your own personal connection with divinity. And that's, I mean, almost the same as what the Christians meant. It's just a little bit more a little bit different, a little bit more complicated. This is not to be confused. Someone was asking me about apotheosis and something recently, and this is slightly different than that. You're not losing yourself in in divinity when you're going through this process. This is a becoming. This is a process of becoming more you, the unique you that is you, what you've become over the course of however many lifetimes, and the culmination of all of those experiences coming together with divinity within you. It's a really profound idea when you stop and think about it. And so, yeah, it's not a dissolving away. There's parts of you that you will lose. The selfish part of you that sees yourself as separate from everything. That part's going to go, but that's a good thing. And even if you can't see it right now, I find it really fascinating, and it's just really the idea. What are we going to be? What's it going to be like? And these ideas shouldn't scare you. It should make you excited just to see what comes next, and what is possible, and what will we be capable of, and and what are we going to do with it. If you keep basically, you keep going down this path, and you're going to become some great wizard of an age or something, or some saint or messiah or something. That's pretty amazing. And it might take a while to get there, but enjoy the ride. And we're here to speed the process up. That's kind of what we're doing. Is the main thing to also remember about the higher self is that it is sort of your source for your magical power. And so it's not just a matter of doing this in some hope for an afterlife or something like that. There are actually, real world practical reasons to try to focus on getting, to developing your higher self. Because the stronger your connection with divinity, the stronger your magical power is going to be, and the higher your authority among spirits it's going to be. That sounded bad. That, but the stronger your connection to the divine, the more spirits will listen to you, is what I mean. They will respect your authority. They will be drawn to you, and they'll want to make you happy. The stronger that it is, then the more things will work out for you better. So this is definitely something that is worth working towards and building up within you. And so let's talk about some practical things we can do that. Now, the first one that I've already talked about would be meditation. And that is you're always going to be my fallback, but that is also kind of the default, and it is the tried and true slow way of doing things. If you want to speed the process up, you kind of what every religion kind of teaches, more or less. We're not trying to get into the weeds as far as morality goes, but trying to be a decent person to your fellow living beings on this planet, which does not just include humans. You can, if you want to work with animals or plants, those are equally need your help just as much as people do. And so, yeah, but being kind and being nurturing to others, sometimes, choosing the harder path that's going to actually cause the growth. And that's the other thing, because it's growing. There's some growing pains involved. And so you don't want to try to run away from the hard situations when they happen in your life. You want to stand up to them and take that hit, and then learn from it and grow from it, and don't let the pain make you bitter, but instead let it crack you open so that you are more compassionate to others who have experienced pain and suffering. God, there's so many different things that we could talk about with the higher self, but again, just we're just scratching the surface here. We're just trying to get some of the beginning ideas and some of the basic stuff that you can do. The one of the newer attunements that I've come out with was really interesting. When Jonty gave me the powers, it says it activates the divine image within you and helps you grow closer to your soul. And I believe that this is what is meant by that, and it's Aya. And so even if you were just wanting to, you don't have to get the attunement. Don't think I'm trying to necessarily sell you something, but if you just wanted to meditate with that phrase, Aya, Ehyeh, Aya, Aya, and just meditate on that and let it kind of grow within you, that would be a really good way to speed the process along, I think. And another one is also to work with angels, and not just angels, but with any spirit. If you can do this with what we typically call demons too. I jump to angels, but that's just me and where the group that I resonate with. But you can do this with demons as well. And I think that the idea of invocation is a good one for this, where you allow an angel or whatever you're comfortable with. Don't run off and start working with a type of spirit that you're not comfortable with to try to do this. And if you've never worked with spirits before, then go with the ones that you feel safe with automatically, whatever type of spirit that is. And so if it's an angel, if it's a demon, if it's a jinn, if it's a whatever, then or a deity. Deities would be great for this too, but you want to try to bring them in and give you the quality of being connected to the divine, and experience, and try to experience that from them. And it's not a complicated. Some people, they think that if a ritual is not complicated, it doesn't work. All you have to do is a basic summoning, however it is you typically do that, and then just ask them to come into you. And then I almost want to say pretend, but you might not have to. If it works really well, you're not going to have to pretend. But I want to be clear, this is not like a full possession. The whatever it is not supposed to take you over. It's just supposed to come into you and give you this a taste of what they are. And you may feel it, you may not, but just but make an effort of imagining them coming within you and connecting you with the divine better. And then there's different ways. The idea of the tree of life and the Sephiroth, those are, that's a way of imagining this tree that connects you to the divine. And so working with that and path working that in that Golden Dawn sense would work. And so with the inversion of that, the Clipot, if you want to work with that within that system, it teaches different lessons, but it's still going to get you to the same place. That's the point of it. That's the point of almost all magic, whether they explicitly state it in those words. Almost all Western esotericism is highly influenced by alchemy at this point. At some point, like probably with the Golden Dawn, they kind of took everything and shoved it together. And then since then, other different various groups have maybe emphasized different parts of it, but it's all kind of all been mushed together. And alchemy was very much about union with, that divine union, and creating that new being. And I mean, obviously, it was with alchemy, it was all way complicated. But anyway, the point that I was getting at, though, is just that, work with the system you have, find what it is that is there that will connect you with divinity, and just kind of work with that on a regular basis. It doesn't need to be every day, but on a regular basis, try to continue to grow closer. And in a certain sense, you could almost just pick any ritual and just do that as a, like the headless rite, or the boneless rite, or the what they call the Steel of Yehu. You could use that. There's any number of different techniques you can do, but the main point is just to do it with the intention. Do whatever it is you're going to do with the intention that it bring you closer to the divine. Then you just want to, it just, and again, with magic, you often, you just have to use your imagination. We have a bad idea that the imagination is fake. It's something that's, I don't know where it came from, but it's just something that as adults now we believe that the imagination is all in our head. But the alchemist, they were trying to change lead into gold in the physical sense, but at the same time they believed everything was one. And so to change lead into gold, you also had to become gold yourself. You had to have that divine union. You had to go through the same, not the same experience, but the same growth and the same transformation. And you can't separate the physical from the mental, from the spiritual. It's all one. And while they might have been wrong on, the science, I think that, they were working from an Aristotle point of view. And Aristotle turned out to be, wrong. So they couldn't actually turn lead into gold. But it doesn't mean that their theory that everything's connected was wrong. And in that sense, I think they were very right. So you can turn exercise into a way of developing your higher self. If you do it with the right intention, you just do it with the intention of, okay, we're going to improve my body, which is going to improve my spirit. And just do any kind of anything that will help yourself or help other people will tend to help your higher self develop, especially if you do it with intention. Because that's always one of the things we do in magic, is we work with intention. We do things on purpose, and with a purpose, and not just because we've been told to do it. I think that is a good place to wrap this up. Again, we're I'm in the middle of this move, and things are crazy, but hopefully we'll start getting that all wrapped up here in a bit, and we can start diving into some of these other topics that I've been talking about. We'll continue the conversation and hopefully continue to become all flame. All right, I will see you next week. Bye.